Okay, hello again. We are moving on to our second lesson, lesson 2. And this introductory clip is just designed very quickly to give you an overview of what's ahead. You'll read on and then see the other 2 videos that will appear in this lesson that will expand on some of the themes that we've already began discussing in the previous clips. So this lesson is dedicated to Israel education and Zionism. And as you read on, you'll basically see that in this session, I'm arguing for the distinction between theory and philosophy as a distinction between Israel education and Zionism. Israel education is a field that is developed in theory. How are we going to teach about Israel? And that's given birth to the whole notion of Israel education as a practice in Jewish education. Zionism is already something that I think we can think about as a philosophy. It's a whole world view. It's much bigger than just a political program or an ideology. One of the things that's really striking about Zionism is that it represents a whole world view. So the first theme in the class, in this lesson, will be to try and get a sense of what that worldview is, like the big isms of the 19th century, socialism and whatever. The big isms of the 19th century had huge worldviews about how to explain everything. Zionism had a take on the whole of Jewish life, the whole of Jewish history, the relationship between Judaism and the rest of the world. It was really broad and comprehensive. And to get a sense of that, I think, is an important objective. After there, we're going to look at Ben-Zion Dinur. Ben-Zion Dinur was actually the Minister of Education, the first Minister of Education in Ben-Gurion's government. He's responsible for building Yad Vashem, he's responsible for building the Diaspora Museum, and he's also responsible for founding the Department of Jewish History in this institution here in the Hebrew University. And he developed a whole approach to Jewish history that was rooted in the philosophy of Zionism. And that case study gives you a sense of how Zionism functions as a big philosophy. The classical concepts of redemption and exile, Galut and Geula, which we're going to talk about in more detail in the next clip, were given new meanings in the context of Zionism. And this is just another, I think, very important example of how the Zionist philosophy explains and re-explains classical Jewish concepts and gives them new meanings that pertain very specifically to the structure of Zionist philosophy. There's an example of it there. And then we're going to look at how Zionist philosophy informs the practices of education. What is the Zionist vision for how education works? Not Israel education, which is how do we teach about Israel, but a philosophy, a worldview rooted in Zionism, which produces a whole educational culture, which maybe many of you were brought up on. Today it's less common, but in my generation it was still very much in the mainstream of Jewish education. I'd like to look at the concept of Zionist education as a counterculture, something that we're perhaps a little bit uncomfortable with today. We want to absorb and be part of the societies around us. Zionist education said something about we're going to leave, we're on the way out, we're going somewhere else, we're turning our back on the world in which we live in, we want to build a new world. And that meant thinking of Zionism as a counterculture. Perhaps this offers educational challenges today and maybe educational opportunities. So that is the theme. And then I want to try in this session, you'll see in the writing, to get to grapple with the differences between Zionist education and Israel education as paralleling the differences between theory and philosophy, or the other way around, Zionist education representing philosophy, Israel education representing theory, and we'll look at certain conclusions that can be drawn from a clearer understanding of that distinction. Now go ahead and read the package, and we will meet in the next clip.